Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Dr. Jason Henderson, here today. Scott is not with us. We're very excited to welcome to the podcast Dr. Mak Jawadekar. Now, many of you probably have not heard of him. However, his accomplishments and the things that he have done are long and distinguished. And one of the things that may be of most interest to people that maybe have touched more lives than anything else, he had a long career at Pfizer and was a dosage and formulator for that company. And he worked on projects, my understanding is something as common as Allegra and even Viagra. So it's something that everybody's heard of. Everybody has benefited in one way or another from his work. And he's originally from Bombay, India. He spent most of the time in the United States. So he's had a long career in corporate America, but he also has done a lot of joint ventures and is now starting into some entrepreneurial type work and bringing less known technology to the front. So welcome to the show, Mac.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jason.
Tell us a little bit. You grew up in Bombay. What was it and how was it that you came to the United States?
Yeah, so I grew up in India and I went to school there and my high school and also up to the bachelor's degree. I got it from the university called Shivaji University, and after that I got my master's there as well from Bombay University. And having graduated in the pharmaceutical field as a pharmacist, at that time, there was a scarcity of pharmacists in the United States. So we were encouraged to apply for permanent residency in the United States. So I just said, okay, why not apply? And if I get it, fine. Within 3 months, I got the permanent residency. And I said, okay, now I better go. Otherwise, this will not last too long, So that's how I decided to come to the United States. And then I was so young that I just said, I don't want to work as a pharmacist in the US because number one, I will need another certification here and all that to get that. Another option was to go for a Ph.D. program, which I really liked. And so I was in touch with a professor from the University of Minnesota. He said, if you are available and if you are willing to come to Minnesota, I would love to have you as a graduate student. So I started right there and then stayed there until I graduated from my PhD program, and Pfizer was right there to have me join them before even I finished my PhD program. So that's how it all happened. So in 1981, I finished
It was
my
quite a
PhD.
change from Bombay to Minnesota, was it not?
Exactly. It was almost like coming from plus 35 degrees centigrade to minus 35 degrees C. So
I'm sure that was tough.
yeah.
Looking back over your corporate career, name for me one, maybe two key relationships that you had that really made a difference for you in your career. I mean, the turning points, whether it was a mentor or something that you'd look back and say, I should thank them. I should, kind of sort of call them out as someone who's been, obviously, maybe your PhD advisor. I don't know what you'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I think originally, the reason I went for the pharmaceutical degree was my uncle who had a PhD from University of Paris in France back in the early 60s. He got his PhD and he was kind of my role model. And I said, my God, he's done so well. He went to France, learned French, got his PhD there. So that is what something I really was dreaming about when I was not even 10. And that's what got me into the pharmaceutical program. And then, I just said, oh, I love it, what I'm doing, and enjoyed doing that. And and that led to getting very good success in the academic areas in that field, and then I said, I got the admission in the best of the best universities which had pharmaceutics programs. So I've found myself very lucky about that. And so the other mentor, I would say, was my advisor, who really gave me an impetus to see what one should do in life, and how one should excel at certain things. And he was a hard worker, but he said, you cannot do anything unless you work hard. Then you get lucky. Once you work hard, you get lucky. So that was his motto. So that's what happened to me. I worked hard at that. I got obviously some things fell on my lap, and I got lucky in some extents. But again, the credit goes to, again, my family, my parents essentially said, there is no substitute for education and the best education you can ever get. So although they did not have enough money to send me abroad, I got scholarships, fellowships, assistantships, everything. So I could support myself that way. So that's how it all began.
Excellent. So you, a pseudo, I don't know really what's the right term. Have you retired from Pfizer, or you're now on your own and you're more of a consultant? Tell me a little bit the types of projects that you're out there and doing, because I see you. We're friends on Facebook, and I see you dotting the world. I mean, one time you're here, one time you're there. And it's not like, Minnesota and Florida. It's India, Europe, South America. You're all over it. Tell me what are you doing? What's happening?
Yeah, so I essentially retired from Pfizer after 28 and a half years there. So started in 82, retired in 2010, which I had illustrious opportunities and good career at Pfizer. And I really, that benefited me a lot because at that point, before I retired, I had taken the president of Pfizer R&D to Asia, and I had him do some kind of JVs and joint ventures with some of the companies out of India and Japan and whatnot. And after having done that, he literally said, the president of R&D said, I mean, these are the things that we need people like you doing for a company like ours, like Pfizer. So that changed my view around what I should be doing, and this is going back in 2007 when I brought him to India and all that. So after that, he said, why don't you pursue these things, because external management of these companies, external alliances with these companies is quite important for companies like Pfizer, because that's how we grow. I mean, before that, Pfizer had done lots of mergers, as you probably know, Warner Lambert, Pharmacia Upjohn, Wyeth, all these companies Pfizer essentially acquired and became huge. And then Pfizer was looking for these, what I call the alliances and joint ventures, which we did. And that really gave me more of a confidence in what I am able to do and what I can do. And because of that, that prepared me to, say that, okay, now I have enough time that I have spent with one company, and I really enjoyed what I did, and I was eligible to get full retirement. So I said, option A is continue with this company more, or be independent and work with many other companies and get this to a new level where I can advise or guide companies so that they succeed, and in turn, you kind of learn from what you have done and get others the advantage of what you have done. So that's what I decided to do, and then I started working with many companies, and essentially I didn't have to do any what I call the marketing of my own self. People knew me, and I had a good Rolodex. So people came up to me and said, now that you have decided to be independent, why don't you work with us and be on some of the boards of directors or advisory boards? And that's how I started doing that. So.
And in a sense, you're putting relationships together. I mean, you know of a company that's doing X type of research and another company over here that's doing a different types of research, but yet they overlap and they could benefit each other. And so you're kind of the go between, right? Putting together relationships. You're learning that the relationship can be as valuable as anything in the company, correct? And
Exactly.
what helps you to recognize that there's a relationship can be formed other than the simple? I mean, sometimes it's, I don't know. I mean, how do you go about that?
I think it comes naturally to me somehow, when I see, I mean, again, it's not that you directly link somebody right away, but when I hear enough about, company X, Y, or Z, and then I say, you know what? If this company works with this, I can connect these dots and the electricity will flow between these two companies. So that's how I see it. And then once they start talking and once I see that this company needs this and this company would benefit from having worked with them, I see the benefits come through right away, and things happen, and business happens, and good things start happening. So that's what I have seen over the last 15 years almost, that I have become independent.
Okay, so without using some names, tell me what you think is one of the larger, I don't know if you'd call it mergers, or the one of the most profitable or successful um, partnerships that you've been able to set up.
So, I will take this name here because it's in the public domain. So I will say that when I came out of Pfizer as a retiree, um, the private equity firm KKR, they were looking for something from Pfizer to buy, and Pfizer was divesting company called Capsugel that came with acquisition of Warner Lambert. And Capsugel was a company which, again, with a revenue of $800 million, they were manufacturing capsules for the world, hard gelatin capsules, if you know those, which all the companies use and buy. And Capsugel is one of the major provider of the capsule shells. So Pfizer said, we are not into the business of providing capsule shells to the world, so we want to divest this business. So when KKR came up to me and said, can you help us acquire this from Pfizer to do due diligence for us? So before I came out of Pfizer, I was kind of an advisor to Capsugel within Pfizer, because I was an internal part of R&D, and Capsugel was a separate entity within Pfizer, however, part of Pfizer. So our head of R&D had told me, if you can help them achieve certain things within their goals and missions that they had set up. So I worked with Capsugel as an advisor within Pfizer for 5 to 6 years before I retired. So since I had done that, I told KKR that, look, I can do help you do due diligence and tell you, whatever the positives and whatever you are looking for, and we'll work with you. So I did work with them for 6 months doing the due diligence, and sure enough, they were successful in bidding that from Pfizer for $2.4 billion, and they bought it from Pfizer. And later on, I don't know whether you know this, but later on they added on few companies, and they grew Capsugel to a level where they could then divest Capsugel from KKR's portfolio to Lonza, and they sold it for like $6 billion. So within 5 years they grew that.
Wow, that's quite amazing. Looking back over your career, in the event that you had the opportunity to talk to Mac at 21, and you were able to distill some wisdom to him as far as like building wealth and being successful. Tell me probably three things that you would say. I'm guessing that hard work, like you've already said, would probably be number one. Just make sure you keep your nose the grindstone, being focused, and work hard. What would you say are a couple other things that you would say would be key for success
Mhm.
and that you'd tell them?
Yeah, so the key for success again is, always keep your antennas up. I think that's my motto for being there when you need to act fast. Because if your antennas are up and if you act fast, you get there first. And I think that's one of the key
So
elements.
explain to the listeners a little bit what you mean by having your antennas up.
Okay, so in other words, if there is a news that you hear today, that look, I mean, just to get an example to you, today's news was Pfizer just declared this morning in a press release that Chris Boshoff, who was heading the Pfizer's oncology division, has been picked as a successor to Michael Dolston, who is the current president of R&D. He was retiring by end of the year. So Chris Boshoff was heading up the oncology division, and I have known Chris for some time now, and we are LinkedIn and whatnot. But having known that I have worked with Chris, I have worked with Michael Dolston, and now Michael Dolston is retiring, and Chris Boshoff is taking over. So that kind of antennas being up, I could tell my companies in my fold that, look, now Chris has taken over and we can talk to Chris about what we are trying to do. So
Being
so
aware of opportunities is what you're saying. Always being looking, and so which requires you to be current of what's going on. You obviously stay very current. I mean, I didn't know that news this morning, but you stay current of what's going on in your field. So that would be one thing you say is another thing. Make sure you're always aware, looking around for opportunities for the fact that they are around when you're thinking about them. Okay, what else would you say?
the third thing, and it's not in the order of importance, but I think your networking. Your networking skill sets has to be razor thin. I mean, razor sharp, and try to utilize your network. I mean, not to your own advantage, but to advantage of the companies that you're serving on the boards or you're helping with. And that network is such a precious thing that you have, that you want to utilize your network to the best of your ability and make sure there is give and take. So network will not work for you if you are just working one way, or only one way ahead. You want to have something to be gained as well as something to be given to the network. So that's what I believe in. And if your network is so good, why do they remain so good to you? And the answer to that, I put myself into their shoes and say, if I were them, what would I be looking for from me? So to get to that answer of that question is what I always think about. So in other words, don't think of what you are looking for or what you want. People will see through that right away, and they will just say, my God, he's so selfish, or he's trying to just, gain. That's not the motive for having the network. The network is to, give and take, but at the same time, giving more always, it comes back to you. So you don't have to ask for it, but it comes back to you. So I think I always seen, work with a notion that you are not going to get anything back. And that goes to my Hindu philosophy, that you just work and do not expect back. That is said in Bhagavad Gita, so having that philosophy in your head, you never get upset. If you give something and you don't get anything back, that's okay. I mean, you're not expecting that back. So that's the key element of what I call networking. You have to give more than be able to take back.
Okay, and I need to pay a compliment here too, is that I don't know that you do much. When people hear the word networking, they cringe. And the type of networking you're talking about is maybe better said friend working. I mean, you are a friend, and some of the things I notice is when I see what you're doing and you go into place to place, you might be at some event and you're a spectator.
Yeah.
You're not there to get an award or to be, recognized or be the keynote speaker. You go to someplace and it's in different countries and you're there, it seems like, this is me watching what's going on. You're there to support a friend.
Yeah.
You're there to cheer a friend on when they get an award. And so the type of networking you're talking about really isn't like what everybody thinks. Oh, hey, can I get your contact information? Here, tell me this. You're truly a friend, and the
Mhm.
events that I've been with you, you're always very kind, just like that. And I think really that's what you're talking about. And I wanted to put a fine a fine point on there to make sure that people don't the networking you're talking about is not what most people say. So you've had an amazing career. You've worked on some projects that affect the whole world. You've been in the presence of presidents of the United States. You've been on delegations with the president. I know at one point, I think it was you went on a trip with President Bush to India as part of an official delegation. I mean, you've done all these amazing things. What is the next mountain that you're climbing? What's your next hope or goal that you're working on?
Yeah, so what I'm trying to get to is, the economies of the world are shifting. I mean, some of the things that you hear in the news these days, about the balance of power, I mean, the whole thing. So again, I do not myself lean towards any particular political philosophy yet. I want to see peace in the world, and I want to see good things happening in the world, and good things propagating in the world. So with that in mind, I have made good friendships with, let's say, in the last 1 year, the Saudi Arabian prince. I had an opportunity to meet with him in Qatar, and then again he invited me to Dubai to meet with him. So I met and spent almost a week with him, and so now I'm on his website, and he has put me on there as an advisor to the Saudi prince and whatnot for his private wealth office and whatnot. But I think what I would like to do this is because now they are building Neom City. They have the Vision 2030, Saudi Arabia's new vision. LIV came out of that vision. So in the sporting world, things are happening there. And for the healthcare, according to the prince, he needs to execute some of their Vision 2030 objectives and missions and goals. So I'm helping them with things that they are trying to do. So those are the types of things where I can bring value to the not only the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but also to the Middle East and Kuwait, as well as I'm working with the Qatar government and in Dubai with the Emirates. So getting, whatever I can little do and make a difference in the lives of the community. That's what I'm interested in, and that's what I would like to utilize my network or my knowledge to further, that. And if they say, my God, that made a difference, that makes my day. So that is my next mission, that when I do go to Saudi Arabia and I do go to Dubai next in the next couple of months, I would like to kind of get to the next step of that objectives that they have set out to do.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that's I want to invite you back on the podcast when you feel like that you've kind of accomplished that. We often ask our guests, what's your next goal? And then we want it to be out there. You've put it out there, something you want to do, but then also to say, hey, I'd love for you to come back on the podcast and let's talk about the accomplishment of that and have a celebration. So you're welcome to come back. Just as far as in general being successful and building wealth, our podcast is all about our mindset and your team. And we feel like relationships are very important. And we've talked most of this podcast about your relationships. And he just said it over and over again. This relationship and this person has helped me, whether it was your uncle or your advisor or what it has been. It's remarkable and such a treat to be able to interview someone that has been so successful and really living what this podcast is kind of teaching people and been talking about. I want to give you a minute or two if you have any final words. I appreciate so much you taking the time to be on the podcast. But what would you say just in general to people out there as far as like being able to be successful in their lives?
So, Jason, I mean, first of all, I appreciate you putting me on this podcast. I mean, this is the first thing I want to do is I appreciate everything what you are doing, and I have seen you in many places, including the last time when I saw you was in Las Vegas, I guess, the SK meeting. I didn't get a chance to talk to you, but I have seen you there, and that's how I met with Lamborghini and whatnot, and I did things with Lamborghini. So when I meet and make some new friends in a setting like that, other things emerge out of that, and I think that's what I like to do more of, and that's why I go to these meetings. I go and meet up with people that I already know, make new friends, at the same time propagate, what would they want me to do and how can I be helping them as against how they can help me. So that's my mission going forward. And I hope, what you are doing is tremendous. I mean, I have seen you do the podcasts and whatnot, and I'm thankful to you for what you have been doing, and the Master Your Millions is a great project, and I really like what you have been doing. So thank you for everything what you do, and continue doing that. And I hope to see you in March when I come up back.
Great. Thank you so much. Everyone, we will put, there's some contact information in the show notes. Make sure you subscribe and give us a 5-star review. That really helps with the podcast. And last of all, we want to remind you that mastering your millions all starts in your mind and with your team. Make sure they are the best. Catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.